approximately 4,600 patients were randomized into group. And this is published in Lancet in November 2019. This study has been published, and this is a flow chart of the study. About 8,000 patients were screened, 4,700 were randomized, half to DAPA, half to placebo. And there's only very limited patients who have not received the data, and about 240 patients discontinued DAPA because of various causes. So, and these are the basic characteristics. Basic characteristics is so important that the patients, about 31 patients is in NYHA class 3. So all patients are symptomatic, and there's good amount of patients which are having NYHA class, and though there's 50% are ischemic, but about 30% patients are non-ischemic. So there's ample non-ischemic heart failure patients. And the most important thing in this trial, only 40% patients are having diabetes. As far as criteria is concerned, only 41 patients are diabetic, the rest 59 patients are non-diabetic patients. And this is a baseline treatment. The diuretics in about 90% patients, ACE inhibitor in 90% patients, beta blocker in 96% patients, MRA is 71%. So they are optimally medically treated patients. You cannot say that they are not optically medicated, treated patients. And the primary outcome was really the significant difference. DAPA, as far as CV death, hospitalization, urgent heart failure visit, it's significantly less in DAPA group as compared to placebo. And when you see worsening of heart failure event, cardiovascular death, all are significantly, and all cause mortality is also significantly less in DAPA group. The recurrence hospitalization was significantly less in DAPA group as compared to the placebo group. After that, yes, there is a significant reduction in all-cause mortality, heart failure admission. Then does DAPA improve the quality of life in these patients? So there is a subgroup analysis of this study, and they have calculated this quality of life in patients with heart failure and reduced ejection fraction by Kansas City Cardiomyopathy Questionnaire. And what they find? Dapagliflozin reduces CV death and worsening heart failure across all range of baseline Kansas City Cardiomyopathy Questionnaire. Improves symptoms, physically function, and quality of life. It increased the proportion of patients experiencing at least small, moderate, and large improvement in their health statistics. And this is the calculation that if a total symptomatic score is more than 5, then you just require 14 patients to get good improvement in quality of life. And if it is more than 15 points, you need only 18 patients. So NNT is also acceptable as far as quality of life is concerned in these patients. Now, there was a lot of debate when this NHGM paper was published. A lot of persons says no. You cannot claim that it is not benefited in non-diabetic, because what they have included pre-diabetic into the non-diabetic. And we all know that pre-diabetic long-term complications are similar to the diabetic, and there's ample studies. So there was a debate that you cannot claim it. The pre-diabetic is definitely a non-diabetic. So what happened recently? Analysis of DAPA heart failure trial was published in JAMA. And this, what they have done, they have differentiated this patient as usual and into the diabetic, pre-diabetic, and non-diabetic, and also all HbA1c ranges. And these are all baseline characteristics, and you can see that HbA1c in non-diabetic was 5.7, and in diabetic was 7.4. So they also say that it is practically a non-diabetic population, not pre-diabetic and non-diabetic population. And they again find that there is a significant improvement in a primary endpoint, worsening heart failure, cardiovascular death, and all-cause mortality. And if you go patient without type 2 diabetic as baseline, normoglycemic and pre-diabetic. They have differentiated, though the pre-diabetic population was also very adequate. So now they say in pre-diabetic there is a benefit, and in truly non-diabetic there is a benefit. So the debate which started after the Anigian paper, that you have to certificate pre-diabetic to claim that it is beneficial in non-diabetic also, that has been resolved with this paper, that if you exclude pre-diabetic, then non-diabetic also shows a significant benefit. And all across the HbA1c delta, whether it's less than 5.6, 5.7 to 5.9, and more than 6. In all, dapagliflozin has shown a better outcome. And one thing is important, that in a non-diabetic population, there is no change in HbA1c level. So it again says it is not because of decreased HbA1c in non-diabetic population. It has some other effect, not because of lowering of HbA1c. Now this is very important. You can say that if dapagliflozin has additive effect, yes, there is a study, heart failure, the sub-study of this heart failure, DAPA heart failure study, and what they show. Now, in a patient who were on MRA, who were not on MRA, but 71% patients were on MRA. So whether they are on MRA, where there are no MRA, the DAPA is beneficial. And same thing with all the things, whether on diuretics, digoxin, ARNI, ivabradine, ICD. So if they are on therapy, it is beneficial. If they are not on therapy, it is beneficial. And however, if you combine the DAPA with conventional therapy, ACE inhibitor or ARB, beta blocker or MRA, it has shown more improvement. If more than 50% of target dose of these drugs has been achieved, it has shown more benefit. If you are ACE inhibitor, more than 50 target dose, beta blocker, more than 50 target dose plus ICD, it has shown more benefit. So it has an additive effect, not a substitution effect in management of the heart failure. Now there's always debate, but ARNI over ARNI, what is this? So, sorry, there is again subgroup analysis, and they show whether patient is on ARNI or no ARNI, the DAPA has similar effect in these patients. So dapagliflozin was similarly efficacious and safe in patients who were not taking ARNI, which suggests that the use of both agents together would further lower mortality and morbidity in patients of heart failure with reducing. Now, depending upon the age, again there is a subgroup analysis, and they have divided less than 55 from 55 to 64, from 65 to 74, and more than 75. Across all the age, DAPA has shown significant benefit. Now, it was presumed that as far as older age is concerned, you will have more side effect. This study has clearly shown that older age, the side effects are not much with DAPA. Rather, in the serious side effect is better with DAPA. According to all age range, the renal AE less than 55, and if you go to more than 75, rather placebo has got more AE as compared to DAPA. So DAPA is very safe in older age as far as serious, and we all presume that most important side effect is deterioration in the renal function, doubling of the serum creatinine. You have more hypertension because of diuretic effect. So it has not been shown in DAPA heart failure trial. Is it safe? Yes, sir. There is always debate that is it safe, and now there is ample evidence. Initially, the small trials which has come with SGLT2 has raised some question. There is ample evidence that whether it's a diabetic or a non-diabetic population, there is no difference between placebo and DAPA, and which I have shown across all age groups. So you cannot say in older age there will be more renal deterioration. It has not been validated by any trial. And if you see the other like volume depletion, yes, it is presumed that volume is a diuretic effect, so it will have low volume, but nothing is statistically significant when you compare with DAPA and placebo. However, the serious side effect in a form of death is less in DAPA. So there's no clinical chances of organ depletion, more deterioration of renal function, amputation, fracture, hypoglycemia, or diabetic ketoacidosis when giving a patient of heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. So now we are very clear that SGLT2 in heart failure management, when it came that in a diabetic patients, it reduces the heart failure. And now, what is the evidence? That you can give these groups of drugs in management of the heart failure, whether they are diabetic or non-diabetic. So what are the at present guidelines? If you go to 2016 guideline of management of heart failure, there's not at all inclusion of SGLT2 in the guideline. However, the guideline, which European guideline, which was updated in 2019, has again the consensus statement has come. In 2016 guideline indicate that empagliflozin should be considered in patient with type 2 diabetes in order to prevent or delay the onset of heart failure. In 2019, expert concession was that canafliximab and dapagliflozin should also be considered for patients with diabetes and established CV disease for prevention of the heart failure. At this stage also, no specific recommendation of DAPA for treatment of heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. However, the Canadian Cardiovascular Society updated their guideline in 2020, and now they say new recommendation of SGLT2 inhibitor such as DAPA be used in patients with mild to moderate heart failure due to reduced ejection fraction and concomitant type 2 diabetes to improve symptoms and quality of life and to reduce the risk of hospitalization and cardiovascular mortality. And the second recommendation is even without diabetic it can be used. So now the recent recommendation recommend treatment if a patient of heart failure is diabetes, you should give SGLT2. If a patient with heart failure without diabetic, it can be given as a treatment. And FDA has approved recently for the management of heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. And this recent 2021 update in ACC expert concession decision pathway, and that pathway has again said that in stage 3 heart failure with reduced ejection fraction, when you are given ARNI beta blocker, that the DAPA can be given as the next substitute, and when you should not give when you suspect that eGFR is less than 30 milliliter per minute. So for DAPA is less than 30, for EMPA it is less than 20. There is only one restriction.